Well, I promised you some photography tips, and I'm going to do that a little bit tonight. I don't have a perfect workflow. There's a lot of different ways to do things. I use Adobe Lightroom. I was in on Lightroom on the ground floor. Actually did some testing for Adobe before it came out in a pre-release, and I've been with them ever since. I just think that if you're processing multiple images at one time, that Lightroom is the way to go. You can do so many things with batches. It's just the absolute way to go. I know a lot of photographers strictly edit with Photoshop. That's great. Photoshop is a super powerful tool. I have it open all the time while I'm editing with Lightroom. The two of them work together seamlessly, hop back and forth. If I need to do some real tweaks or some special stuff or some design, Photoshop is a place that I go to do that, but it's working right alongside Lightroom. Lightroom now has a mobile version which syncs in the cloud between devices, between your desktop computer. I'm using it a little bit, but I'm not using it exclusively for my larger shoots. What I want to do is just take you basically from the memory card coming out of the camera, walk you through real quickly what I do to get my photos into Lightroom, where I back them up, some of my just initial import dialogue, some of those things to kind of get things set up. And then in some upcoming vlogs, I'll take you through tips and tricks and things that work well for me. So let's go in. I'm going to take you in on the computer, show you kind of like I said, start to finish what it looks like, and then let me know if you've got questions or things that I can help with specifically, or topics coming up in the future that you'd like to see with Lightroom or Premiere or Photoshop for that matter. Just go ahead and let me know. I popped my card in, and it's going to pull up all of the shots from this particular shoot. It was an ice fishing shoot with Joel Nelson Outdoors. Combination shoot, video and photos. So the dialogue looks like this. I am going to say I'm going to copy all new photos. Copy all new photos to my Thunderbolt drive. And I want it to build previews, save me some time later. And I'm going to rename the files into the template that I've used, which is the date and the file name. It'll look like this with the original file name. I apply a preset to this, which I will talk about later, which is just a little tweaking that happens that I do on all my photos. I'll walk you through later. I would probably put in some keywords. Type in Joel Nelson Outdoors, ice fishing, hard water, a number of these that I will be able to search through later. I've got a whole handful of them. And then it will send these into my Thunderbolt drive, and it will sort those by date. I would click import, let it go. I've already done this just to save some time. They will show up over here in my 1229 folder. Here are all the photos, and I have them in. And the first thing that I would do is make these into a collection. So I'd say select all, and I'd go to collection. I'd say create collection. And I would type in the date of the shoot and the title of the shoot, include selected photos. So I want to make sure I've got them all there, and create that. The next thing that I do, and this is the first step in one of my backup processes, is I would take that same collection now, and I would say export as catalog. And I've got a backup external hard drive that I would send that to, and say Joel Nelson Outdoors 2017 shoots. Make sure that it says export negative files. If I don't do that, it's only going to send the information, the previews and the develop settings. So you want to make sure you send those export negative files. It's a export catalog. In this case, I've already done it. Let it go that direction. The next thing that I would do is I would take all of these images and sort them. In this case, video photo combo. I usually don't like to do that if I can help it, but I did here. I'm going to sort these by file extension, and you can see I've got photos will show up first. I'll take the first photo and go all the way to the last photo, and I'm going to hit the 6 key, which is going to flag those or code those as red. Take the rest of them, which are video files, hit the 7 key, which will set the label to yellow. See the difference? I just like to be able to tell the difference between those, and then I will go back to sort by capture time again. And now I've got them all chronologically in order as they were shot during the day. In this case, we are just going to talk through photo stuff for the most part right now. So what I'm going to do is click up here on my sorting, my filtering, and say attribute, and I'm going to click the red label so that I'm just looking at photos for now. We'll skip the video stuff. The video stuff I usually just leave there to kind of log through and be able to quickly reference
as I move things over to Premiere. So there's no real develop settings or anything else that I can do with the videos here anyway. So first run through, I will literally go through with my right and left arrow keys. I have fingers on those two keys, and then I have a finger on the number 1 key and a finger on the X key. And what I do is slowly go through and make some decisions on photos. X is going to be a reject, a photo that I'm just not, it's out of focus, it's severely under or overexposed, or just a really bad capture if it has people in it or that just have bad expressions and stuff. So I'll run through these with X's and 1s. The 1s end up being the ones that I just quickly think tell the story of the shoot best. They define the shoot. On both of those sets, the X's, the rejects, and the 1 stars, I would say between 5 and 10% of the photos from the shoot. In this case, I'm going to go through, I'm going to go back to my grid here, and I will first of all find the rejects, and then I will flag by reject, and I'm going to just do this. I'm going to flag those first 3 as rejects. I will filter by reject. I've got those 3, select all, and then I'm going to hit the delete key. They're not going to delete off my hard drive. They are just going to delete out of the collection. So I've got them on the hard drive if I want to come back to them later, just in case we find out that Bigfoot was in one, or a UFO, or Loch Ness Monster, or something like that. So they'll still be there, but I will delete them out of the collection. In this case, let's go over to the ones that I have starred as 1s. These were just the 9 photos that I felt like were ones that we wanted to work on. And then I will go through on these quickly, do a little bit of develop settings, do a little bit of tweaking, and these are the ones that I try to share with the client as early as possible. This photo here, you maybe recognize if you get the Outdoor News. That's the one that Joel published in his Wheelhouse article that he wrote this last week. So try to find some that I know that clients are going to want to see and use maybe right away. So those were flagged as 1s. The next step then would be to go back through these, and what I like to do is look at chunks of photos that are exposed exposed in a similar way, that are similar white balance, and then I try to process those together. That's one of the great things about Lightroom, is you can batch process, if you will. So in this case, I'm going to just look. I can see right in here that this string of photos, maybe from here to here, were all very similar. Joel's going into the fridge area. So if I go up to my develop module, you can see here that I've applied my preset, my import preset that I told you about before, which, if you look, it bumps the exposure. It turns the highlights down a little bit, shadows up, whites up, blacks down. A little bit more clarity, which gives just a little edgy, grungy feel, and then a little bit more vibrance. And then I think I add just a little bit of dark vignette on the corners. If it were a photo shoot that involves people and beautiful portrait-y type stuff, I'm definitely not going to apply that preset with the clarity, turn the clarity back down. But in this case, I would go in and make sure I've made all my tweaks and all the things that I want to on this photo, and then go back to my grid. And the one that I made the changes to, I would select the rest of that string, select them all. You can see that my highlighted photo is the one that I made the edits to. And then I hit Command-Shift-S, which is Synchronize Settings. And this dialog will pop up. And I'm going to just basically apply all the same stuff to that whole string of photos. I'm not going to do the crop, I'm not going to do local adjustments, and I'm not going to do spot removal, because those seem to be individual photo sensitive, so I'm going to just go in on individuals and do those. But otherwise, I'm going to hit Synchronize, and it will apply the same settings to that whole string of photos. If you were to zoom in, you can see that we've got keywords applied. This tells me that some developed settings have been applied. And then I will go through and just zoom out and try to process kind of a big picture of these things and be able to see chunks of photos that can all be processed similarly. If you look at this string right here of Joel with the auger, they're all very similar. They've all been exposed about the same. So off of this one, which was starred with a 1-star, I will do a similar synchronized settings to those. You can see with this little grid right here, this one was cropped. The rest of them, because I didn't have crop checked, stayed with a nice wide photo. After I'm done with that, I will kind of zip back through and go through each of them individually again. This is kind of the second time through now. See if there are individual tweaks that need to be made to individual photos, things that are just a little bit out of place, or something that needs to be, the exposure. This one, probably the highlights are blown out a little bit, so I would go to my develop module on this individual photo and probably turn my highlights down just a little bit because things got blown out just a little. Probably turn my exposure down just a little. So each individual photo, though I do a lot of that batch processing, each individual photo gets digitally touched, if you will, 3 or 4 different times. I might come back in and realize there's something out of place. There was a pop can over here that we want to remove that I could probably do in Lightroom. I could certainly do in Photoshop, and I'll do another tutorial on that later with kind of tweaking of individual photos. But then I would go through and try to kind of individually tweak these and maybe add a couple more 1-starred photos that tell that story just a little bit better. As soon as I'm done with all of those, I'm kind of back here again and feel like I've got kind of the first edit done, and I'm probably ready to share photos that are all moderately ready for the client to at least take a proofing look at. So what I would do is select all. I would go File Export, which is Command-Shift-E, and I would find a place in a temporary file, which I do here. I'm going to export a low-res version of this. I would resize these in the 2000 pixel range, maybe resolution about 200 pixels per inch. Send them to a folder that I can upload them to a place where the client can look at them, can proof them, while they are going through things and until they come back with individual tweaks and things that they want changed. Then I'll go in and start digging in and looking a little bit closer at them. Those handful of 1-star ones are ones that in the meantime I might share on social media. Those clients might share on social media or other places. This one went to print immediately. Otter Outdoors has used that one. I've seen these on social media with Striker Ice, with Otter Outdoors, with Markham Technologies, Beaver Dam. We used this in a video for Beaver Dam already. So it's a way that you can kind of get photos going to the people that need to see them or that want to see them right away. The thing that I do at this point, after having all of those ready, I go back to that place that I exported the catalog as a backup. I'll select all the photos again. I will say File, Export as Catalog. Probably thinking you did this already. I'll go down to that catalog that I did with Joel, and what I'll do is I'll click on, and it's not in this, of course it's not on this hard drive. I will go back to that catalog and click on the catalog and let it rename itself, and it'll overwrite it. You don't need to re-export the negative files, but let it overwrite everything else. And then basically on that external hard drive, you've got an updated version of the catalog so that if you do lose things, you don't have to go back and redo all the editing. So that's some of my just quick tweaks to get things moving. Obviously, there's a lot of editing and things that we can do and look at closer, and I will do that in one of these upcoming tutorials.
Basically, that's me taking the card out of the camera and taking you through getting those things onto multiple hard drives, cataloging them, keywording some of the things that I do to try to keep my photos organized. Again, not the end-all be-all. It's not perfect, but it's the workflow that's worked for me. Appreciate you stopping by. If these vlogs are something that you're starting to like, go ahead and hit subscribe. It's just a fun place to be able to share some of the things that work for me and hopefully get a dialogue going between some people that are seeing these. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.